shrines are located is commonly referred to as Bagh-e-Bedil. Bagh, B-A-G-H, is garden, and Bedil is the person after whom it has been named. There's a bit of a story here that why this name comes up, and not everybody agrees that this should be called Bagh-e-Bedil, but I'll come to it a little later. Now, Bedil is a poet who lived in middle of 17th century and first 2 decades of the 18th. Yeah, so 1640s to about 1720. And he is a poet in Persian, and apparently one of the most well-known and most revered poets in Persian. It's surprising that not many people talk about him or know of him in the Indian subcontinent, but he's apparently a great favorite in Tajikistan and Afghanistan. So much so that there's a bunch of Afghan taxi drivers who are in Washington DC, and they meet up every evening to discuss and recite Bedil's poetry and discuss its interpretations. They're very, very passionate about Bedil, and Hafiz is nowhere around, yeah? It's Bedil who's the supreme in terms of Persian poetry. And this area is named after him as Bagh-e-Bedil or Bedil's garden. And this grave here, this burial, is considered to be that of Bedil. Now, Bedil's poetry is very, very complex. It's not something very easy. It's not even close to Ghalib. Yeah, like Ghalib is somebody who's every man's poet. Yeah, everybody quotes Ghalib. Yeah, whether correctly or incorrectly, that doesn't matter. But everybody seems to be an authority on Ghalib now. Yeah? And he's in Bollywood. He's everywhere. Yeah? And Ghalib apparently has commented on Bedil's poetry, saying that it's impossible to write like Bedil. It's one hell of a task to write like Bedil because his poetry is so difficult. And this is something which has been said in appreciation, that it's so remarkable the way Bedil writes that I can't do it. Something like that's what he wants to import when Ghalib says so about Bedil. And Bedil apparently is somebody who has a sense of humor as well. He is around the time when Aurangzeb would be here, and Aurangzeb reign is typically considered to be an orthodox one. It's generally believed that during his time there was a rise in orthodoxy during his time. So it's said that Aurangzeb encouraged people to grow their beards so that it would be a more pious activity, visibly more pious activity. So it was in deference with the in keeping with the growing orthodoxy during his reign, that he encouraged people to grow beards. And Bedil is supposed to have commented, quipped on that this inaugurates an era of goats and bears, making fun of everybody who's growing a dadi, growing a beard, that this inaugurates an era of goats and bears. And he mocks the mullah, he mocks the orthodoxy by saying that if you're going to grow a beard, you will not get entry in paradise simply because something so ugly, so unaesthetic is not permitted in paradise. So you better be careful. If you think that you are being very pious and nice and religious, you're wrong. Yeah, nothing so ugly would be tolerated in paradise. So he seems to be a person who has a sense of humor, at least, yeah, despite his complex poetry. Now, Bedil's burial, this particular site, is something that not everybody agrees is the right one or is the original one. People say that this is a modern creation and this should not be called Bagh-e-Bedil because Bedil had nothing to do with it. Now, Bedil was born in Patna. He was born in Patna in Bihar and he died in Delhi. And there are references which tell us that his house was just outside the city of Shahjahanabad. So what is today the old Delhi area for us? That during the 17th century would have been the capital city, and it was called Shahjahanabad. So Bedil's house was outside Shahjahanabad, outside the Delhi gate of Shahjahanabad, and it was close to the river. So a rough guess would be that it would be somewhere here. It could be anywhere outside Delhi gate till where we have been walking around. And by the time you come into the late 18th century, the written references talking about Bedil's house say that it does not exist anymore. There have been attacks on Delhi, there have been raids on Delhi, and apparently the house gets destroyed. So there are written references telling us that by the 70s, 80s and 90s, Bedil's house does not exist anymore. And when you come into the colonial period, early 20th century records, when you turn the records, you find that this area is mentioned. There is a mausoleum sort of a thing mentioned, but there is no evidence of a grave. Those records say that do not mention Bedil and say that there is no grave around here. They mention Saint Nuruddin, but this area as Bagh-e-Bedil is not mentioned. So apparently this is a very, very modern creation. And this identification of this site, this grave as that of Bedil is apparently done sometime in the 1930s, as late as that, by Khwaja Hassan Nizami, who was associated with the Nizamuddin Dargah. He's a very, very big personality, was a very, very big personality. And he, along with some like-minded people, identified this area as the Dargah, the burial of Bedil, and took the help of the then Nizam of Hyderabad to spruce it up and renovate it. This most recent renovation, it looks nice and clean and painted, is because of this, the 2006 visit of the President of Tajikistan. I mentioned that in Tajikistan, Bedil is a big chap, he's a big personality. And when the President was visiting in the year 2006, he said that I would like to visit this area. That's when everybody suddenly realized that there must be a chap called Bedil somewhere around, and let's paint his whatever is left of him, and that's when this was done. So this is Bedil for us. So the grave as well as the inscription on the northern wall are fairly modern. They don't go back to the 17th century. Definitely not.